Hey, listen to Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MP. As always, I'm Grady, and live on Skype we got Josh.
Hey,
We missed out on talking about NXT last week because they aired a day later, so I do want to crack open with that NXT show, just take a quick geese over it. Specifically, that main event. It was the 10-woman tag team match. We'd expected the faces to come out on top, and they did. I think the interesting piece here is we also got the announcement of NXT Deadline coming up in December. We got the return of the Iron Survivor challenges, like we'd kind of expected. Um, and during this match, we already said it had 10 of the top women. Full stop. We got Lash Legend. We got Jakara Jackson. Providing distractions, bumping that number up to 12 women who all sort of want spots in it. And we were like, the five face women could potentially just, be the five people who make it into the Iron Survivor Challenge. And then this week on NXT in the first qualifying match, someone who wasn't even in this match gets qualified, and we have to reconsider again.
yeah, I think it'll be a mix of people. I mean, there's as you said, there's 12 to 15 people that could be legitimately at the top of the card in the women. Um, so any five of these people will be an amazing match. I still think it might be Stephanie that ends up winning it.
Yeah, I think we've had so many teasers about Julia and Stephanie potentially going head to head. We got another one this week on NXT after their tag team match, so I do expect them to claim two of the spots, and it makes the most sense for one of the two of them to come out on top. And as you said, Stephanie needs. What does it need? Stephanie makes a little bit more sense for the championship shot. We'll have to see. This week on NXT, the one that I alluded to, the qualifying matchup was Sol Ruka versus Cora Jade, and it was actually Sol Ruka that ended up qualifying for that Iron Survivor Challenge, becoming the first of the five women announced for the match.
Yeah, it should be fun to watch. I like Solroka. I think she's pretty talented. Um, Having her work in this match is definitely some way of getting her up the card to join those other 12, 15 people that we've been talking about for weeks.
It'll be interesting to see, I guess, who she ends up opposite and who, or how much sort of damage she can end up putting into that match. But yeah, the Iron Survivor challenges are always a great way to showcase some of your upcoming talent. And yeah, at some point we're probably gonna have to stop calling Sol Ruka upcoming, but just for now, I'm gonna stick with it. And then looking at another feud we had from last week on NXT, Wesley and Javon Evans have had their feud going on for weeks now. They were going to get their big match. RVD gets assaulted backstage, ends up coming on out, evening the odds. Javon Evans coming out on top of Wesley. And then this week on NXT, a lot of things passing on and continuing through. Javon Evans defeats Lexus King, qualifies for Iron Survivor, and Wesley defeats Cedric Alexander and qualifies for Iron Survivor. So it seems those two, I'm going to assume, are not done just yet, given they're going to be two of the five men in the Iron Survivor match.
Yeah, yeah. Also, was there really any any realistic chance that either Lexus King or Cedric Alexander actually won the matches? Um, the answer is that question is no. They don't even have Dolph Ziggler chances. Um, yeah. Uh, as you said, the Iron Survivor matches are often really interesting because they often intertwine with storylines that are already sparked or spark off ones that we weren't expecting or were expecting. And so, yeah, it makes sense to have two people that are battling and feuding in the match. It lowers either of their opportunity chance to win the match because they are feuding. But I would still say there's probably a pretty good chance Javon Evans wins. Still, I, I honestly I see him being a lot along the lines of Trick Williams from last year.
All right, not going to count him out just yet. You know, he has had quite a bit of a showcase, obviously, with the Randy Orton match, also now interacting with the ECW legends heading into the Philadelphia show. He has been getting quite a bit of the showcase lately, as he's sort of pushing his way on up the card. Jumping over to the main roster now, Raw and SmackDown. We talk about them every time. The Bloodline. This week, it's all been about building that team. Sami Zayn went over to SmackDown as invited, trying to sort of get everybody on the same page, get Reigns to apologize to Jay, get us all together again, and then we end the show with the four of them all raising their ones up in the air.
And we found out a very interesting wrinkle in it. It's going to be a 5-on-5 match for the War Games match. So that does begin the question who will join. But yeah, it was interesting the scenes Sammy basically be on Raw against the idea of joining, and then somewhere a flip switch happens that we don't really see, and he joins the OG Bloodline after hinting that he might join the other side.
I think with the Bloodline, we've almost become so conditioned to everything playing out so slowly, and each element of the story having time to breathe. And we all knew that in some form or another this was going to end in a War Games matchup. And I even wrote it in our group chat at one point. There was just so much that needed to happen in about 4 weeks in terms of character development, story development to get us to that point. And so, although for a normal storyline, it probably wouldn't feel like rushed or that it was happening too fast. I think I'm just so accustomed to the Bloodline storyline developing slowly that seeing it take place on 2 shows a week, rapidly changing, Sami Zayn's opinion on one show to the next, 3 or 4 days apart, feels like, you almost want to pump the brakes and slow down a little bit, but Survivor Series is coming up and you can only wait so long and you have still so much to develop, as you say, especially with it moving to a 5 versus 5, we still have that storyline of who's the 5th man.
Personally, I know they hinted at the fact that it won't be Seth Rollins. I think it still will be. There is an outside chance of it being an undesirable person for the 5th man. That won't make any sense. The only reason it will is because he's a Paul Heyman guy, and it's CM Punk.
Yeah, I would much rather the Seth Rollins side of things, especially given, as you said, they sort of laid the foundation for it. There's storyline there, and I guess again it's another one that I would have liked to play out over 2-3 weeks, and sort of build towards Seth Rollins finally accepting the 5th spot, because Roman's team at this point is looking a whole lot like a laundry list of people who probably want to beat the HE double hockey sticks out of him. And Seth Rollins would fit right in.
Here's, honestly, this is what I'm thinking. I've heard rumors of many different people being the 5th person for both teams. The one I like the most is Seth Rollins for Team OG Bloodline, and Bronson Reed for Team New Bloodline. Because they're already feuding, it would make sense to intertwine them into this major storyline. And there's, at least on the OG Bloodline, there is reasons to link together. Also, I would like the idea of them maybe patching things up a bit between Seth and Roman. The chair shot at WrestleMania when he basically gave up being champion to get revenge for what happened to him many years ago at Seth's hands, I think was an important step.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, and I personally, I think you brought it up in the group chat. I think it needs to be like we still don't know until the last possible second. Nobody comes out to go in the cages, and you think when it's the final person that's supposed to come out, nobody comes out initially. So you think it's 5-on-4. And then eventually you hear the music and Seth comes out as the fifth man.
Yeah, I think for a War Games match, it really is the only way to do a surprise, right? Otherwise, I guess you could have the surprise being the first person in the match, but to have a pop and you're like, oh my god, Seth's actually gonna do it. He's gonna team up with them, and then he hops in the cage for the next 20 minutes, or in the little pod cage compared to the fighting cages, I guess. I don't know. I wouldn't do a big pop surprise reveal like that and then have them stand around for 20 minutes. Personally,
Yeah, I think that's what they would have wanted to do last year if they didn't have to announce Randy Orton ahead of time because of the whole CM Punk stuff. I really think Randy Orton would have come out last and would have come out as a surprise. He would not have been announced priorly. And I think it only works with faces. You can't do this idea with a heel team. So
yeah. Ultimately, it makes the most sense, as you say. Seth Rollins is tied into the feud intrinsically. Seth Rollins, Bronson Reed is still heating up. They've still got multiple clashes in front of them. They can have one of their clashes be here in War Games. It makes a whole lot of sense, compared to arbitrarily pushing the 5 versus 5 in and having people who are completely unrelated to the feuds appear. So we'll have to see how they formulate it in the weeks or in the shows coming, but I got a feeling that's probably the path that we're heading towards.
yeah. The only other option I really see that isn't just randomly throwing two people in that don't need to be thrown in would probably be Zilla Fatu and Hikuleo.
Mm-hmm.
And that probably would, I could see maybe joining Hikuleo. But I don't think they'd just throw Zilla Fatu immediately into the storyline.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Well, hopefully we'll know in a couple of weeks when Survivor Series happens. But for now, we are halfway through the show, and that means it is time to go into our entrance theme of the week. And this week it is the theme for NXT's Fatal Influence. You're back for Wrestling Roundup on FreeFM, ArrowFM, and MP. I'm Grady. He's Josh. Still on the main roster. We talked about the men obviously forming into their War Games teams, ready for their big clash. It's hard to ignore the fact that on Raw we got a group of 4 women standing tall, facing down another group of 4 women. As Belair, Cargill, Naomi, and Sky were standing opposite Morgan, Rodriguez, Jackson, Stratton, pretty much locking in, at least 8 of the members of what's going to happen at Survivor Series for the woman.
Yeah. Although And keep in mind, I am about to say something because Raw next week is taped, so it's already in the can. Rhea Ripley appears on the show next week with a one of those plastic masks on her face. I think she's the fifth person for the team face team.
Logically, it
I
does
have
make sense. If you know, when the injury was announced, we were like, hopefully this isn't going to drag out the feud massively. Hopefully this isn't going to go, for a really long time. If she's back, if she's good to go, if she can get physical, then it's full steam ahead where we were in the storyline. It makes a whole lot of sense for War Games to be those two going head to head with a group of team behind them.
yeah yeah um yeah she's basically wearing the mask Cody Rhodes wore when he was in his undashing phase after his face got broken. So I don't know. The question then becomes, who the heck does Liv get to join the heels? Because that would be, I think, $1 million question. Because I'm pretty sure not many people like her right now.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of not many people like her, and also there's not that many strong heel women on the main roster that aren't already included in that match. There's a few around the bazaars, but I don't know. There's no like mega obvious fifth person to be joining them, to me at least. But we'll have to wait and see what happens next week. Obviously, as you say, with the taped Raw, and then I don't think. Oh, maybe it will. Maybe it'll happen on SmackDown. There's still plenty of shows between now and then when we build towards War Games. For them to get that fifth member, the same as we're looking at the men and looking at their fifth member. A whole lot of fifths that we're just looking for at the moment. Um, Gunther. What is up with Gunther? Um, he got himself his match with Damian Priest. He got into a verbal sparring match. Didn't really take a whole lot of shots. Damian Priest looks like he saw most of the shots coming. Ludwig comes out. He kind of just sort of shoves Ludwig around a little bit and he runs off mad. And I guess it continues the storyline that you sort of brought up last week between Gunther and Kaiser. Where are we going with these two?
First off, that promo did a lot to get people interested in that match and seeing that rematch. First, second, Damian Priest really held his own. And I think that's a huge key in it. Secondly, I think the loss to Cody humbled, to some degree, Gunther. Because he is very much appearing very differently right now. He's kind of shaken. He's not as like I guess not as outwardly sure of himself, I'm guessing. And that is starting to cause friction between him and Ludwig. Ludwig is like, are you getting soft on me, ring general? And I think that's going to be playing a major part in the eventual feud that we think might happen between Kaiser and Gunther. Because that's going to be, I think, something that he can play on is you got soft. You lost to Cody, and it made you soft. So let's see where we go from here. But I'm liking what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting one to see how it all develops and how the match with Priest goes at Survivor Series as well. Should be a couple of bangers for Gunther as we kind of expect with him now. I do want to change tracks a little bit. Just we sort of not purposefully avoided, but we hadn't been talking a little bit about the Wyatt Sicks lately. They'd been in the background of some segments. They kidnapped the Miz. They seem to be doing something there, but then we got a little bit clearer of their intentions. This week they appear opposite the Final Testament, going clashing head to head with Karrion Kross and his crew, as well as the Miz. This is the next feud that we're going to see the Wyatt Sicks in, but I guess I think for the first time since their re-debut, the Final Testament stands tall in the short term when it comes to the Wyatt Sicks.
Yeah. I have no idea what they're doing. The Wyatt Sicks, to be honest. It's clear that they very obviously do not like it when you turn on your friends or family um so yeah, that's clearly something that triggers them. Beyond that, so it'll be very interesting seeing like how storylines play out, seeing who they go after this. But if there's anybody that can get this group over the Wyatt Sicks after the Gable stuff, it's Miz.
Mm-hmm.
Miz can definitely get them over. And yeah, I think that'll just be it. I think it might be they might do a traditional Survivor Series style match. They haven't had one of those in forever.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see them doing 3 War Game matches. That would be overkill, I think. But yeah, they've got the makings for a 4-on-4 Survivor Series match if they want to. Traditional Survivor Series match if they want to go that route with this.
Yeah, we'll have to see what sort of combination they spin out in at the end. But there is a few different opportunities that they can go for here. But yeah, the Wyatt Sicks sort of went dormant for a little while, so it's good to see that they've picked their next feud, and the storyline at least sort of, continues that trend, as you say, of betrayal and going after people who are the betrayers in tag teams and factions and other such storylines. And just before we run out of time, jumping over to SmackDown, something else that we haven't talked about a huge amount. We've now had a few weeks of the Motor City Machine Guns on SmackDown as tag team champions. I guess, how are you finding the Motor City Machine Guns this week? It was A-Town Down Under, and they're coming out on top.
Honestly, probably this is probably the best run they could have hoped for when they came over. They definitely don't have a lot of time. I mean, technically, you could still do stuff with them. I mean, you have the next, because they are the same age essentially as our former World Heavyweight Champion Damian Priest.
Mm-hmm.
I think one's 42 and the other's 43. But you don't still, so you get to get that pop of them being a tag team in WWE. You get a tag team rivalry. Who knows how long they'll hold the titles? And then we'll see if they do something with them separate. I had an idea a few years back when you had a bunch of people in upper mid card that were ex TNA talent of doing a stable of TNA talent and calling them the Impact Players. Have them join forces with AJ. And then obviously please leave the club out.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's so much that you can do because they're both former world champions. So there's more talent there for more matches, but it's nice seeing them get a run, even if you don't know how long it's going to be.
Yeah, it does seem like a take no chances kind of run, right? They come in, give them the titles, put them up against your best tag teams, A-Town Down Under. This week it looks like the Street Profits taking a shot next, DIY also lining up, and pretty much just run through that SmackDown tag team division, get all of the sort of dream clashes that you can get now. Well, they're still here, they're still healthy, and they're still putting on good matches. and then start to see what comes out of it, what the medium to longer term future for the tag team, for the championships, and for all of that is. But get all the matches in now while you can, and they'll keep putting on good matches, I'm sure. Alrighty, well, that is pretty much all we have time for this week. It's been great talking to you.
Bye, B.
Visit our Facebook page, facebook.com/wrestling R&D Up, our Twitter page, twitter.com/wrestling R&D Up, our YouTube page, youtube.com/wrestling R&D Up. And we will see you next week, where we will talk about the unveiling of the Women's United States Championship and everything that happens last week.